tech bros are absolutely responsible for what's happening right now, but you know who we really need to be blaming a lot more? The podcast bro. Podcast bro. These guys. Oh, these guys. Oh. If you share a home with a man who is listening to any of these dudes, any of them, including little Theo. Oh, poor Theo. He's just so innocent. If you are listening, if there is a man who's listening to any of these in your home, he has been radicalized. And he probably voted against you. He probably voted against you. I'm not even exaggerating because we have data. Another reason to support good journalism is that they just did a deep dive into looking at the accounts of all of these men with podcasts. These dudes, the podcast bro, they literally swung this election. So if any man in your home likes Joe Rogan, he voted for Trump. I promise you. If he likes Theo or any of those clowns, he voted for Trump, okay? And you're in danger. To quote Whoopi Goldberg, you're in danger, girl. You're in danger. And I don't mean to be like hysterical or scare people, but I look at all this. I've been blaming Mark and Bezos and all these tech bros, and they are absolutely, and of course, Elon. Fuck you. All the very, very responsible for this. But these men with podcasts are in Donald's podcast. They were at the inauguration. If that doesn't, okay, but let's just look at the data. Let's look at the data. Before we go there, if you want to support journalists, storytellers, comedians, activists, and all those people, please follow their pages, comment a lot, share, play it in the background on YouTube, whatever. And please, if you can afford, join our Patreons, because that's how we are able to do this. Especially in this age of information and all kinds of stuff. And I'm going to have on my live Evan the bioethicist on February 2nd on a live. And Evan specializes in misinformation, disinformation, conspiracy theories, and their effect on mental or public health. So don't miss that. Now, let's get into this research because this is terrifying. But knowledge is power. So if you have if you are in a home with one of these men and they watch this stuff on YouTube, these men, I promise you, they are way more radicalized than you realize, and they did vote against you. No matter what you may think, no matter what they said, there's probably a 95% chance they voted for that man. And here's why. I first saw this link on Blue Sky. You can follow me there if you want to. Also, I'm always on Patreon and YouTube no matter what. Sometimes TikTok, sometimes Blue Sky. But I saw this and I was like, oh, I knew it. This was the title, and this is a banger of a title, y'all. And look at all the journalists who worked on this. So please go. This was not behind a paywall. Go look at it yourself. I'm just going to briefly cover it. I'm not going to do the whole thing because I don't want to bore you, and I want you to give credit and like clicks to the people who did all this hard work. Okay? But this second presidency, it wasn't just Elon. It was literally these dudes. These dudes had more influence, I would argue, and a lot of people probably argue after reading this, than Elon or any of those dudes. And if you don't believe me, there are multiple articles out there that talk about. So Spotify, whatever, donated $150,000 to Trump's inauguration ceremony and celebration host brunch featuring these dudes. So what is very insightful is not only did these men swing the election, they are actually going, like, if it goes according to Trump's plan, they are going to be a seat at the table they're literally going to continue to peddle this information, disinformation, conspiracy stuff, and bigoted crap. Instead of having real journalists in the room, they got these loser comedians. All these dudes who just have a microphone and, are grifters and literally play on the male loneliness crisis, which is actually a male entitlement crisis and a male refusal to deal with patriarchal conditioning crisis. That's what that's about. But anyway, they had a brunch meant to tout the power of podcasts in the election. And that was the New York Times and Wired, all these reported on that. Now, when you think of like the people who are doing this, you think of maybe Ben Shapiro and whatever, Joe Rogan and Theo Von. I will never forgive you. I never liked you. But now if you follow either of these dudes, stop. They are why we are here. Not just them, but they have a bigger role than anybody realized. So, this Sweden also follow international news, because you may find it harder and harder to find. We don't know. The news sources within the United States are probably going to be under more and more pressure and literally like be silenced more and more. Follow international news. But look at this one. This the reporting by a Swedish website. They just said 150 inaugurations, a celebration. The donation aims to continue to expand our presence in Washington, D.C. while furthering the goals of our platform and our creators. What is this? It is in line with the work we do in capitals around the world to advance our policy issues, regardless of who is in power. I mean, okay. Anyway, here's another article. This is by, I don't know that I never read this source. Also, y'all, I'm doing my best to gather information, but sometimes I might be wrong too. Don't take me as like the word of, okay, but I do research this stuff a lot before I bring it to you, and I'm happy to be called out if I'm wrong. But there's several articles out there that talk about how much these dudes influence it. They influence it. So Spotify is setting up shop in DC. And this was according to Bloomberg, the article I'm going to go into a little bit more. But there's the motive behind this, y'all. Spotify's quest for podcasting dollars is taking it to the nation's capital, because they realize, Donald Trump loves podcast bros, because he knows the podcast bros are what got him elected, right? And who needs journalists? Who needs people who have to follow a certain ethics and standards and have editors and have all kinds? And I'm not defending legacy media, by the way. They do a terrible job in reporting a lot of things, like the last year in Gaza, but in general, they still do good work sometimes. And so I'm saying don't always believe legacy, but also don't always not believe legacy media. But I would much rather have a reporter from like the New York Times or the Associated Press or NPR or, the international than podcast bros. I don't want podcast bros influencing shit, because they're all a bunch of like, they're on the Inchmail spectrum, right? As political pundits flock to DC to witness the inauguration day, that will take place. This was before the inauguration. Spotify is expected to cater to podcasters by inviting them to the brunch and giving them access to the pop-up studio space. And all this is literally to celebrate the power of podcasts in elections. But who has the biggest podcast, y'all? I would love to have my own podcast. By the way, you don't make money in podcasts unless you're at like that level, right? Who is dominating the podcast world? It's these dudes. Even literally like and like Fresh and Fit and Joe Rogan and all these dudes who are literally who are radicalizing men and using hatred for women to radicalize men across all kinds of different communities, right? Into hating us. And then that's when they do the more that hating us, hating trans people. Who else do they hate? They hate everybody, but they really, hit on the male loneliness crisis or entitlement crisis to gather them and then push this alt-right stuff and get Donald Trump elected. Now, even though Kamala was on Alex Cooper's, she didn't go on Joe Rogan's, but partly because the bro didn't even he was like so entitled in his invitation, like, whatever. And honestly, I don't blame her for not going on a misogynist and a dude who literally, if just Google it, that man has used the N-word so many times on his podcast. I wouldn't want to go on there if I know he hates women and he uses the N-word and is anti-trans and like has all these conspiracies. Why would I go on a podcast that platforms that crap? Why would she go on that podcast? To get attacked? No thanks. But Trump's ability to connect with young, predominantly male podcasters was particularly pivotal to him winning, especially Gen Z men. And these dudes got shout outs during the victory, right? So he invited them to his inauguration. That's all you need to know. I will say that, some of their interviews, like this dude's, got taken down from YouTube. But they're still out there in other places. So, as much issues I have sometimes, and not putting my stuff in the algorithm and have me having to and demonetizing videos all the time. Still, they have a higher standard than some of these other platforms. So as it's been reported, the president-elect made significant efforts during his campaign to get his message in front of podcasters and influencers. And now that he's going back, these commentators will play a major role in setting up and pushing his agenda. Or they'll just stream straight from the White House. Like, can you imagine? That's probably what's going to happen. Like his son, of course, has a podcast. And, if he gets his wish, maybe he'll be seated literally inside the White House briefing room. Like, can you imagine Theo and these clowns being right next to him and in his office and being like, but that's, if they were willing to go to bat and get this man elected, I wouldn't put it beyond them. I am telling y'all, these guys, they are not just some of them literally started off as literal pranksters. Theo started off in like Road Rules, like they started off in reality TV or pranking. And y'all know what I tell you about men's jokes. I'm going to get into that if I have time at the end about the pranksters and how I swear, stop following anybody who does pranks. Your husband, if he pranks you, he hates you in general. I've made videos on that. But like these men who are like Ashton. Okay, I'm going to get at that at the end. But first, let's focus on just how much of a role these clowns had in getting these dudes elected. I mean, look at Joe Rogan is one of the worst ones. He is like I think he's the most powerful, like biggest podcaster. And most of it's men. Look at him. Look at him. Look at that. Yeah. Trump knew that. So Rogan didn't make much of an effort to get Kamala on there, right? He didn't want to interview her, but he probably just, whatever. It was, look at this. Trump, Rogan's reach is so substantial that Trump took a few hours off the campaign trail to travel all the way to Austin to sit with that dude. And then guess what? He got the endorsement. Joe Rogan said he was the biggest there is. The biggest what? Clown? Douche? Narcissist? You are, Joe. You're the biggest, ass kisser. I can't even believe that this man is considered a comedian. Did he start off an X Factor or something dumb like that? Even his statements about wanting to have Kamala on there. Yeah, I just want to have a nice conversation. Shut up. No, you don't. You hate women. You hate women, and you probably really hate black women, given your record on race. So there was a bunch of podcasts. Of course, this one, Ben's War Room. So his son has triggered. Y'all, I swear to God, everything is projection. They love to trigger us, but they are the ones who are so sensitive to any criticism that they literally want to shut down a whole app that criticizes. And even though he hasn't been confirmed as being like a part of the administration, he's got a podcast. That's how he's going to do it, y'all. And look at this. In a recent episode, Trump Jr. teased how the president-elect's transition team is eyeing ways to bring conservative podcasters into the White House briefing room. So this, this is coming straight from his own son's. If Joe Rogan and these clowns are in that room, oh my God. So now let's get into Theo. He had this clown on his program and he talked about his recovery from learning. What does that have? Why are you talking to this man about that? I saw a clip of that and I was like, why is he on your show? I'm telling you. And also, you are the company you keep. And Theo has a history of hanging out with Chris D'Elia or whatever his name is, the guy who got caught messaging teenagers and who has all these allegations against him. That whole group, Theo, Joe, Chris, that other dude who was actually in Sex and the City as a creep, the guy who was banging the head that Carrie banged at the wedding. That dude, he has a lot Anyway, the guys don't even have to talk about anything political. The fact he had him on his podcast and talked to him as if he's a normal human being and not a complete and providing Trump with another connection to a block of male voters who don't consume much mainstream media. And that's the issue. The dudes who watch these podcasts are not watching news. They're not reading books. They're definitely not watching content from women or reading books women wrote or hearing our perspectives. The only thing they're consuming is these podcasts. So imagine him bringing on Trump and being like, yeah, bro, and joking about things, and they're having a heart-to-heart talking about his own. I don't care, Theo. I don't care about your dumb addiction. I don't want to hear anything else about it. That is literally why so many people like Theo, is because, and I have had addictions in my life, and I have known people who've died of addictions. It is something that has impacted my life a lot. Believe you me. And this guy has a whole platform because he got vulnerable and talked about his addiction so much. Fuck you, bro. Please stop following men. If you're following Theo, please stop following him. Because there's a chance that, like, if you're following me, you might actually like Theo. Because, you know, he is this like, you know, he seems so innocent. But he's not. There's this show, don't care about it, but it's one of them. But it's like they're smarter than we think. I mean, I think... You know, the same way we think men are dumb, you know, and that's why they don't do anything, like the whole weaponized incompetence. Like Trump said, I'm not saying he's smart, but as somebody who almost got unalived by that hobo who was dumb as rocks, dude, that man, sometimes I'm like, how can you not compute this right now? But you know what he is? He's a predator. And when it comes to like preying on people, they're so smart. They're so smart. So they cover all their bases. You know, they got this dude who's talking about, you know, limiting government and yay, free markets, right? Among students in high school and college. Then you got these clowns, prankster influencers. I swear to God, it's like, I don't know who these dudes are, but it's like if like Jackass was like interviewing a presidential candidate. Like, it's so absurd, y'all. It's so, remember, I watched that movie and then I was like, I can't get that time back. The dude literally put a race car up his butt, or he swallowed it or something. I forget. I'm like, they literally just hurt themselves and other people for laughs and money. I swear to God, y'all, I cannot tell you how much I hate prank culture, because it is almost always about preying on someone's trauma responses or like something awful, scaring the crap out of them so you can be like, that's what bullies do. Pranksters are bullies, okay? So again, if your husband or boyfriend is always pranking you, he hates you, okay? This dumb podcast, Full Sin, started by a group of influencers called the Nelk Boys. And so unlike some of the other ones like Bannon and what's his butt, they're not political. And that's the thing. They all go out there. We're not political, but we have presidential candidates on our show. We're not political, but Joe Rogan brings up, and Dax. Don't listen to that man. I don't care how much you may like his wife. Don't listen. They all do the same thing. Dax is not on this list. And even though he may interview some people that are kind of cool or super cool, I swear to God, they all have the same time. What about the sports teams and trans stuff? Like, I swear, and some of y'all fall for it. You put it in my comments when I talk about trans issues, but what about sport? This is all dog whistles, and this is how they literally got this man elected. These guys are not political, but they have been campaigning, whether you know it or not, on their podcasts through the dog whistles and talking about these issues they know nothing about that line up with the far right and Trump's talking point. And again, people who follow pranksters are not engaging with the news cycle or watch it, like they're not fact-checking anything. Definitely not learning about patriarchy and how men are followers under patriarchy and the hierarchy that they're obsessed with and who's the boss, and just get in line and follow orders. So they listen to these clowns who make money off of pranking people, which is bullying, and they're like, oh yeah, well, okay, if they're talking to Trump must not be a bad dude. I am telling you, God. Don't know who this dude is, but he's another one. This dude even gifted Trump a gold Rolex and a Tesla Cybertruck, of all things. Like, those things like blow up. Like if you cannot convince me there's a worse car out there than this dumb truck. I don't know who this guy is, but video game. They literally took every angle. They're like, oh, we got a comedian, we got the video game guys, we got the prankster guys, we got the Joe Rogan or whatever the hell he is, and all of it is to connect with the male skewing audience. No, can you believe that even this crusty clown has a podcast. How does this man, like, talking about Congress stuff, so they've got that base covered. Swear, y'all, they're so good at preying on people. They don't have to be book smart. They don't have emotional intelligence, but they do know how to exploit. They are experts at that, and for that, they are brilliant. They're brilliant. Because remember, there's different kinds of intelligences. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get him in there. And then, of course, you got to have a white woman in there enabling all this crap, who's going to bat. Patriarchy would not exist without women holding it up, but especially white women. This is what we have historically done. We literally have ruined every feminist movement. Doesn't mean that all feminists who are white are bad. That's not what I'm saying. But I have a history degree, and this was my focus, was white women's role in suffrage. And holy crap, we literally watched that video. So there's always going to be the Megyn Kellys out there who want the patriarchy. And even if she doesn't, because I've actually heard, I think Jessica Valenti went on her show, I could be wrong, and did a video about how she seemed very feminist, and then she went into her role as soon as the cameras are on. And I honestly believe a lot of these men who are, inch-mailed podcasters, I'm not even convinced they fully believe what they're saying, but they're grifters, they're greedy, and they're playing these men that, like, seriously. So, I mean, she probably is, like, does believe all this crap, but, that she could just totally not. But she wouldn't have her own show if it wasn't for feminism. And even though, like, this is just an example of a woman who literally also helped get this man elected for her platform. Like, y'all remember back when she was like, she tried to, like, because, how dare him criticize her? She's the biggest pik-me ever. You're going to call women, you don't like macmen, dogs, slobs, disgusting animals? She asked. Does that sound like the temperament of man should be? And then the woman who said this in the intervening years has become a major conservative voice in the podcast world, right? And interviewed him on her show. And she even went on the freaking campaign trail with him. So I am telling you, don't ever trust pik-me's. Even if she may have said, but she's always going to follow the money and follow white men and patriarchy. And there's this podcast. I've never even heard of half these people. The venture capitalists, bro. Like, literally, they're covering white women. They're covering venture capitalists. They're covering pranksters. They're covering comedy. They're covering, Congress and, Before I show you the numbers of just how influential these men are, let's talk about you, Theo. This is why I'm telling you, when men will weaponize being vulnerable to trick you. All the time. That's why, I know that men are not allowed to cry because of patriarchy, but when they do cry, it is usually to a woman to manipulate her. I'm not saying all the time, but if they have not been working on patriarchy and working on their trauma from their past and emotional intelligence, when men, like, literally, this man built a little empire off of being vulnerable. Men will use vulnerability to trick women all the time. I'm not saying that when men are vulnerable, they're trying to trick you, but I'm saying a lot of times that's the case. He is talking to this guy. These guys, and then he fell out of his chair or something dumb. Like, these guys, it is like the bullies at school, but who also were dorks and awful people. This is literally, we are living in Revenge of the Nerds. That whole video on that. Look at this. Just so funny. I'm at the inauguration of a process that I helped get into power because I influenced all these men. And look how my chair broke and it's so funny. It's all such a joke. Fork you, Theo. Oh my God, I think I broke my phone. No, I didn't. It's the cover. And then look, it's the guy who molested his sister. I believe those allegations, by the way. I may cover that later. This dude, oh God. But Theo, I'm going to take a moment to recognize you and your awfulness. And I'm not a fan of this dude either. I hope, oh God. See, don't buy this, especially with that Southern accent. God. Someone from the South, when I hear Southern white men talk, I'm like, oh, right? Don't fall for that Southern accent. And this little, they're just, a lot of women think that these Southern men just sound so much nicer and more gentle because of their accent. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for the dumb thing neither. This dude is only 3 years younger than me, but he goes for the whole like poor little boy thing. Now, when you see the subjects under his Wikipedia, American politics, interesting. That's the first one. I thought you were a comedian, bro. Now they're all saying we're not political, even though they're at the inauguration. Human behavior and how is this man who started off on a reality TV show get to talk about all this? And then the most brilliant women I know don't have podcasts. But, sounds like another man with some daddy issues. His dad was 67 when he had him. And just because he grew up in low income and, had addictions or whatever, we're like, don't trust him as like a voice of the people. Because he appeared in Road Rules. That's where he went to an open casting call for Road Rules in the Real World. At a bar while studying in, Louisiana State University. But look at this, right out of the gate, he faced controversy on the show for his views, including stating in the casting special that he was against interracial dating. Like, imagine stating this, something that has been legal for a long time, like, oh my God. Well, it might not be legal much longer. He also wrote about it, apparently. And then he was on 4 seasons of a reality game show called The Challenge. This is the man who is possibly going to be setting up shop in Trump. Like, we are lit. Like, Trump is a reality star. No wonder he loves all these dudes. Like, look at all the stuff he's been. Battle of the Set, Fresh Meat. Like, look at all of this reality TV show. Just imagine if someone from, like, the worst villain from one of the many from Love is Blind was at an inauguration, had a podcast with millions of followers, and might be in the White House. But then, he switched over to comedy, and he apparently popularized prank texting. I swear all these guys have the same stupid prank background where you send a text message to a random phone number to incite a conversation, and then a prank texting blog. But look, podcast with Chris. This guy, I dare you to Google him. So yeah, he's been hanging out with Joe, all these dudes for a long time. 2024, Spotify announced that this dude's podcast, the 4th biggest podcast on his platform. The first one is Joe Rogan. Oh, and then Whitney Cummings has taken a look. I think she's decided to go full, like, it makes sense, right? She was good buddies with Chris, did a whole show with him, and then it got canceled when the allegations came out. She's at the New Year's Eve thing, and oh God, I wasn't a huge fan of her to begin with, but now, nope. Her jokes at the New Year's Eve, nope. And now he lives in Nashville, my hometown. I hate this. How did we get all these pranksters? Well, this is kind of what started it. And this dude, I did a whole breakdown of how awful this man is. Ashton. Y'all, we have been in this prank culture for so long. And now look what it's led to. Reality star prank bullies, mean men who exploit the trauma. Like that's why when and this started in high school, when guys would throw girls in the pool, or just do stuff like, bah, scare you. And you're like, it's like, well, I mean, sorry. I called out my boss at the barbecue place who was literally hiding between 2 cars once and jumped out from them on my way into the restaurant. I was like, that's not funny. And he's like, what? It's funny. And I was like, really? Are you the one worried about getting raped and unalived on a regular basis, especially walking alone as a woman through parking lots? And he was like, oh. And I was like, yeah, stop it. Put that man, my manager, I put in his place. But so again, we live in a culture of men pranking and, getting off on. And another reason why I can't stand this man, I've done so many videos on him. Look at my celebrity playlist. I mean, anybody who's friends with this dude. And I did a video on Punk, but literally Serena Williams could have died because of they had her, they didn't think that she would actually care about a child maybe getting kidnapped. So she was driving like 100 miles an hour through LA trying to save somebody. Like, these shows are awful. I hate them. They keep going. And now the men who do these shows got this Donald in the White House. Great. Don't watch these shows, please. Like, these shows have been so problematic for a while. Like, people got hurt. And it wasn't even legal. But let's get back to the podcast bros. Not only did they get this man elected, they have shamelessly got him elected. And as this article in Salon talked about like a while back, and I've been saying for a long time too, these podcast bros make a ton of money off of men. And all these shows have the same goal, encouraging men to reassert their waning social dominance by reining women in. They're all grifters. They charge money for self-improvement. Most social media platforms, except for Twitter, owned by Musk, Reddit, and YouTube, have a bigger audience among young women than men. So I am telling you, please, if you live with a man, go and see what he has been watching on YouTube. Please. He may be more radicalized than you even know. And a lot of them may not be extreme yet, but they are they are receiving the Inchmill messaging regularly. And just a little reminder about Joe Rogan. He's long been chastised for the degrading, women-hating, transphobic rhetoric and his use of the N-word. All too frequent derogatory comments on women's and claims that, toxic masculinity is needed, just like his buddy Mark Zuckerberg within America. So, this is the messaging they're getting. I don't care who he has that you like on it. Stop listening to his podcast. Some of this people I really like and respect have been on this podcast. Please stop going on this podcast. But, and I'm not going to go into this man. He has a machete. My ex, the hobo, he had a machete too. I don't know what it is with men and machetes. He's selling these men. And these may be your sons, your brothers, even your dads maybe, with exclusive membership. Right? About how to make money and all that stuff. Because the thing is a lot of men know that they are failing and that women don't want to date bums. So maybe some of them are like, oh, well, at least, he can help. I am telling you, they are just getting radicalized. And all of this, of course, as a reminder that men 50 and under are becoming increasingly celibate against their will because they rely on women for all of their social needs because they don't get it from other men because they don't even know how to talk to men. They're terrified of men. They're terrified of each other. They don't listen to each other. They ask each other a question, and be like, oh, how you doing? Oh, it's cool. I just got divorced. Oh, okay. No follow-up. Literally, women are the ones who oftentimes bring depth to conversations and relationships so when they're just so they don't get any emotional needs met from other men unless they're really doing the work. And some are, but most are not. And so they're out here and they're women are like, nope, I want a man with emotional intelligence who has a job, who's politically compatible with me. So this is probably going to get worse before it gets better, which is all the more reason you have to be super vigilant about what content any man you might be dating is consuming. Because if he's not radicalized yet, he will be if he's watching any of these dudes. And as she points out in this article, these podcast bros have become the mouthpiece for a movement that aims to reverse centuries of long progress. Roe v. Wade, these abortion bans, the anti-trans stuff, all of this stuff, the podcast bros served it up on a platter to these men and got the men who are going to do all this elected and went to the inauguration of that man. And we're joking and having fun. If you are not so pissed at these men, then you should be. Please stop watching men, giving them your watch hours. Do not hate watch these men. Please stop hate watching men because you are making them rich and powerful by hate watching them. Please watch me and my mutuals. So the Bloomberg, I'm going to go over this really quick and then I'm going to wrap it up. This Bloomberg thing, they went over 1,300 hours of footage from these channels of the biggest male podcaster. And they mapped it out. They have literally, go watch this yourself. They wanted to see what message was being distributed to these tens of thousands of followers on these platforms. And what they all basically were saying that United States is a desperate place destabilized by soaring inflation, migrants streaming across the border in the beginning of a third world war. Gender politics also had a hand in this. according to them. They're gotten out of hand. You know, like some of the stuff that people are actually really suffering from, which is unemployment, like housing crisis and all this stuff. And yeah, men being lonely, which is nothing new, but they're lonelier because women are like, don't want to die because of these men anymore, right? And so they turn it all into this messaging right here. America's screwed. The only one who can save us from all this, it's the migrants, it's the trans people, it's the women, it's people of color. It's all these people. And now that Trump is back in power, the broadcasters are well positioned to help build support for all of his agenda. So they are going to do even more damage now than they've already done. They've been doing it for over a year to get us to this. And now they're going to probably set up shop in the White House. And even if they don't, they're going to do it from their cushy little pads in Texas or Nashville. And all of this could have lasting effects way beyond Trump's term. We're literally rolling back things. And I'm not trying to be an alarmist because, again, especially yesterday, I made a video, if you haven't watched it yet, about hope and how to deal with this and how we don't let, I'm not here to scare people. I am here to help us direct our energy at who we need to stop giving watch hours, money, stop believing, stop trusting. And it's the podcast bros too. Right? You know what? You can do so much change by, first of all, protecting yourself from men watching this stuff. And also, if you are ever, do not hate watch these men. Do not do it. They are purposely triggering you and making so much money off of it. In the months leading up to the election, hosts had more political pundits on their shows than ever before discussing these issues, and they had them more frequent. So they specifically looked at the videos that had like 1 million views or whatever when Bloomberg was doing this, and more than a third of the most popular videos mentioned voting in the U.S. election. Often, the host explicitly calling listeners to vote. Great. Thanks for getting out the vote. So here's a chart to see how often they mention. This is more of the chart. Even though none of them, this is not like the political ones. This is just like the Theo and the Joe Rogans and stuff, right? The ones who just are pranksters. Even though none of them, call themselves political pundits, there's conservative talking points were sandwiched between freewheeling discussions of sports, masculinity, internet culture, gambling, pranks, making the rhetoric more palatable to an apolitical audience. So all these dudes who may not have voted at all because they're like, whatever, I don't know, I don't care. They made these boys and men care. And I say boys because some of these men can't vote yet, but they are starting early. They'll probably vote in the midterm elections. Or the next one. And of course, he had Mark on there to literally spew this stuff out straight. Like, if you had any doubt that, and I've done videos on him recently, you can look at the playlist. But Mark went on there and went full, and like Scooby-Dooed himself. It's a full-blown insult. There's a wholesale generational shift in who are the people who are being listened to. Basically, like, we're finally listening to men, white men, According to one research, close to 50% of people over the age of 12 listen to a podcast monthly. Rogan's 3-hour interview with Trump in late October drew 50 million views. 50, what? I forget how many people, is that like 1/7 of the population? And this is also after Zuckerberg loosened, the Meta's policies and stuff to allow more type of rhetoric that's common among podcasters, such as transgender people, right? They want to be able to be transphobic, racist, sexist more easily, and like promoting all this, when you look at his Instagram page, he's like, I'm not a nerd. Look at me. I hang out with soccer players and these Ultimate Fighter dudes. Like this, bro, God, we're seriously, it's the revenge of the nerd. And they're all making changes so that, to their platforms to allow longer stuff like podcast bro stuff. And again, 80% of the audience of these podcasts are men, particularly white men who make up Trump's base, right? Exit polls have shown that Trump received more support from young men than any Republican candidate in the last 2 decades. I also think that some of this is not like, Trump was bragging about Elon messing with the machine. But also, this could be true. So just a couple more things about this before I go. So when they reviewed all of this stuff, right, when Bloomberg did, each of these channels catered to predominantly male audiences who had at least 1 million subscribers. They all had Trump as a guest. And unfortunately, on this app, on YouTube, is where they tend to go most. And this is where 90% of U.S. adults aged 18 to 49 use this site. 75% of American teens report that they use it daily. So I'm not saying that, if they're on YouTube that's bad, but that's where there's most of their time they spend on YouTube. I had no idea how much time men watch YouTube until I married a man. I was like, dang, was never on this. That's why I was scared of it, is because I realized that's where men are. I didn't want to be on a platform with mostly men. And he has noticed, and I have noticed, that just because he's a man, they're constantly trying to push this to him. Doesn't matter what his algorithm looks like, it's very frustrating, because men who don't want to be radicalized, men who are actually working hard, like he has 2 men's groups, and he's doing all this work to try to help men here in real life, and in groups online and stuff, like Zoom stuff. Even him, who is so against this, they are gonna constantly push this stuff too. So I'm telling you, men need to understand how much they are being targeted and used by these grifters. And you need to be aware of what they're watching. And again, these shows typically are longer form, and they have, guests with, athletes, musicians, comedians. So why the hell they have Trump on their show? And most of these shows make fun of political correctness, and they, people like Joe Rogan, recast controversial issues as edgy humor. So y'all be very careful of these edgy comedians. A lot of them are say stuff to trigger you, not because it's funny. And a lot of them bring on these people as friends of the show. Even saying it that shows you who they believe in. 30% of the guests on these shows are politicians or pundits. They're not liberal ones or progressive ones or leftist ones, or you know what I'm saying? Look at this. Look, Trump was on all of them. They're having people like Vance, Musk, Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro, Dana White. Look at this. Sometimes it's hard to comprehend how much of an influence these people have had until you see a picture of it. Don't ever forget this picture. Who they chose to give a microphone to. Who they chose. This dude. Oh, and this dude who's fully back. Oh, and even Candace Owens. As someone from Nashville, I think I may cover that soon. These people who have dog whistles and right talking points, oh God, they have so much influence, y'all. So even guests that none of these people seem to care about did well. So for instance, Tucker Carlson, who's one of the most problematic people on earth, he went on 6 out of these top 9 ones that we're talking about. He's still ranked 3rd in number of views. And look at this. Some channels had few, if any, political guests until just before the election. I want to know how much money they were getting. Or maybe money they were hoping to get. Maybe they caught word that the White House may have them and they were like, I got to get on this. I want my money. Look how many times. Look at this. Right before the election. Look at this. Right before the election. Sometimes twice. Right before the election. Look at this. Look at this. 37% mentioned voting. Look at this. All of a sudden, they're talking about voting. A lot of them also repeated the big lie of him loot. They're doing they might as well have been on January 6th. They might as well have been there with the dude with the horns and stuff. Imagine using your platform to encourage men who hate women, hate trans people, hate immigrants, and hate all these, and it's never white immigrants, by the way, okay? Just to be clear. Now they're all we're in a state of crisis. Register to vote, go show up. Look at this, 29% of the videos mention transgender. They know anything about it. They even care, probably. They're literally just repeating dog whistle. Look at this, and they love to mention it in sports. They love that. Look at this. And then when they talk about it, they're always criticizing this crap. It's literally always right-wing crap. As if they care about girls' sports. As if they care. They don't care. So, and I've had people on my page say this kind of stuff. People who are big feminists. I am telling you, this is how, like, please, this is manipulation, okay? Please, this is not what we need to be talking about. And it's all dog whistles, y'all. Because guess what? All these states are enacting all this stuff because these men have normalized this argument they're having on their platform. Why does Joe Rogan care about teenage girls' sports teams? Do you think that man has ever cared about that? Ever. Ever. It's not about sport. And then, of course, right away, right out of the gate, he's doing all these executive orders. And guess how it's so easy to do that now? Because knock it out of the park, because these men have been normalizing that for over a year. And since the election, these creators have continued making videos about the same themes. Some of them even literally showing up at the inauguration, having fun, falling out of their chair, just being goofy. So please, yes, we can be mad at Elon and Mark and all those guys, but these men are a major reason why we are where we are. Please make sure that men you care about are not watching those men. And if they are, you need to have a serious talk with them. Show them that article. Look at the article yourself. And please stop hate watching this stuff. Please stop giving these men money. Please stop giving them benefit of the doubt. They are a big reason why we're here. And please support my work, my mutuals work. I have a Patreon. I'll put a link in the pinned comment. If you can't afford a tier, follow it anyway on the free tier so you can at least, you won't lose me in my work because the algorithm may go against me totally one day. It already has on and off. And let me know if you heard the comment song. Loser, 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 comment song. Podcast Bro Edition. I'm not fooled by your silly mullet. You're a dangerous loser like the rest of these big old nerds. Loser, 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 comment song. You and your little friends can bark off and go back to doing what hole you came out of. Look at this. I hate you and you. Loser, 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 comments. Oh, sorry, y'all. This is where I sing a random song every time if you're new here. Tap, tap, tap a comment. Loser, 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 comment song. And you're a loser too, Kim. Loser, loser, and Sam, I hate you. I'm coming with a video soon, but this guy, God, can't stand this guy. Almost as much as I can't stand this guy. Big old king baby with too much power. Y'all are clowns, 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 clowns. The nerds who want to go to space and be a little cowboy in space. And just dogs. God, ride your rocket. Loser, 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 comment song. All of y'all have an obsession with your teeny, teeny, tiny blah, 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 blah. Loser! Comment song is wrap it up, wrap it up. Y'all are all this dude. But you know what? This isn't a loser here. Not a loser. This is not a loser. This is not a loser. This is a sweet baby. Loser comment song is ending now. Tap, tap, tap. Let me know if you heard the Loser Podcast, Bro comment song.